Thank you. The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr Speaker.
Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Firstly, may I commend Matt Ducey on his first member's bill into the House out of the ballot. It is a special day for you, and I want to acknowledge that. Mr Speaker, I do want to say that we do support the bill to Select Committee, but there are one or two things that we're not entirely sure of, and we're hoping that through the passage of this bill, if it does actually go through to Select Committee tonight, sir, will be resolved over the course of this discussion. Firstly, is the question of what is the purpose of this bill. I'm not entirely sure that the general policy statement actually outlines exactly what that member has just disclosed to us across the other side of the House. So the policy statement says that the bill seeks to bring transparency to public collectors who are paid to solicit donations or signatures to ensure that the public is fully informed as to all the relevant information when signing, paying, donating to any cause. I'm not sure, Mr Speaker, that this is actually a huge issue in the community sector, because this bill doesn't actually relate to registered charities. Registered charities will be exempt from this bill, and they would be the lion's share, surely, of the charities out there soliciting donations. Every lunchtime, just about on Lambton Quay, there'll be someone with a bucket or a charity stall set up on a table, or someone looking for signatures on a petition or to a particular cause that will not be covered by this member's bill. So I'm not entirely sure about who is going to be captured within this bill, who it is that, particularly, that this bill is wanting to actually incorporate. So I'm really looking forward to that discussion at some point about finding out who is the intended groups or people that are supposed to be have the issue of these chuggers, these unsolicited, these donations that are solicited by people who don't declare their status in terms of whether they are a paid employee or not. Because we're talking about 26,000 registered charities in this country that will be exempt from this bill. And just on the note of chuggers, I suspect that the bill is designed to reduce the impact of those charity muggers, or chuggers as they're called. But as I say, we most often encounter them when we're talking about some charities, and I'll name a couple, perhaps Greenpeace or Oxfam or Save the Children, some quite large charities. As I say, by and large, they're registered charities, so they won't be covered by this bill. So, Mr Speaker, those who are employed to collect the donations or signatures and are paid commission will need to disclose that before the signature or the donation is made. How will that apply if somebody's dropping a coin into a bucket on a stand in a shopping mall? Will that person who's actually collecting that donation be then required to chase after that person that's made that donation into the bucket, to tell them, to make that disclosure about whether they are a paid employee or they are on commission? It seems a little bit of overkill, Mr Speaker. When I have actually spoken to not only the Heart Foundation as Matt Ducey has, but to many other community organisations to ask their opinion of this bill, and most of them are saying it's not going to apply to them. One of the responses I got was, does this Member of Parliament not have anything better to do with his time And I got a very interesting response from, let's have a look here, from Surf Lifesaving, who has said that all of the chuggers we see on the streets are all working for legitimate charities, and the significant players are already ahead of the game due to previous bad publicity. So rather than pay for the chuggers' services from the funding they collect on the street, they fund it from other sources, which allows them to legitimately make the claim that 100% of what the donor pays goes direct to the charity. So there are already mechanisms in place that charities use to facilitate the fact that they can get around the provisions of this bill. But there's another issue at stake here, and that is to the reputation of charities. The reputation of charities can be called into question if the public now has to have disclosure statements from them. There will be an unintended consequence, and I don't know that the member has actually thought that issue through. Charities required to disclose does put a negative slant on the reputation of charities. One or two charities have indicated to me that they are a little disquiet about that. Then let's look at the organisation that is responsible for the professionalisation, I guess, of the fundraising institute, of fundraisers, and that's the Fundraising Institute. And it's very interesting what they have to say, Mr. Speaker. They have to say there is the old concern about the public having the right to be informed about where their donations are going to and the overall cost of fundraising. And that they are trying very hard to professionalise the profession of fundraising. Fundraising is a difficult and complex profession, Mr. Speaker, and it's something that I've been involved in throughout my community career. And reputation is everything. Relationship is everything. So any bill, any discussion that gets in the way of that relationship, particularly if you're trying to build trust with people over the long term, has an impact on your ability to fundraise successfully. So while the Fundraising Institute is looking seriously at increasing the professionalism of fundraisers, this bill seeks to do the complete opposite by throwing into doubt the professionalism of the fundraising fraternity. And let's face it, there are many organisations that would not be able to fund the services that they currently undertake unless they had the services of professional fundraisers. Professional fundraisers are not to be dismissed, Mr. Speaker. They are a very important, vital part of the community sector, and many organisations who are partially funded by government, for example, rely on professional fundraisers to make up the shortfall. And while we're on the matter of registered charities, at the beginning of the speech, sir, I said that there were about 26,000 registered charities in this country. Unfortunately, what's happened over the period of a very short period of time is that many of these charities, through perhaps not filing annual returns, or perhaps not completing information for charity services, have been deregistered. In fact, I think somewhere in the region of over 1,000 since the beginning of the year. So I wonder about this government's view, this government's intention to continue to support the charitable sector, if on the one hand they are criticising the ability of professional fundraisers to actually raise sufficient funds for charities to continue to do the good work that they do, and then on the other hand they are deregistering charities, which means it is impossible for them to get government contracts and also to secure funding. It seems very counterintuitive to me, Mr Speaker. Anyway, on that note, we will be looking forward to more discussion on this and to resolving many of those issues. And thank you, Mr Speaker. We support this bill to Select Committee.